Welcome to Voices of the Ancestors, where we explore Georgian polyphonic songs
and the women who sing them.
Hello, the voices today are me, Holly Taylor-Zuntz, and I'm in Oxford, UK.
And me, Susan Thompson, in Tbilisi, Georgia. And it's our last episode of Series 1.
Yeah, more on that in a minute, but first, Susan, tell me, how is life in Georgia?
Oh, Holly, you know I'm going to say it's great, because
Yeah.
it is. What have I been doing? I've been going to these weekly singing workshops that Tamar Buadze has started in a park in Rustavi. And I don't know if you remember, but in our live show, the beginning of the year, we asked listeners who their dream guest would be on Voices of the Ancestors. And Jeff Burton said Tamar Buadze.
Oh, yes, of course. I heard of her because she's the person that's taken Laz songs that are in one voice and created harmonies for them, which we've been singing. Mm-hmm. So I was really happy to get to meet her at her first workshop, and it was pretty lucky that her ex-student was visiting from America and could interpret for us. And I think you and I are quite used to, community singing in the UK and Europe, but Tamar thought this was the first time it might have been done in Georgia. And I'm pretty sure she taught Ad Romasa Shensa because we were there and, it was Easter time.
Yeah, wasn't it a funny feeling when Tamar moved on to teaching the American song, The River is Flowing? She was sounding out each word in rhythm, and we're so used to doing that in reverse. So, yeah, to be surrounded by Georgian people finding their way around English words, it was funny. And I love that Tamar is running these workshops. When we were chatting with her, we managed to understand that she wanted to bring a sense of joy to her community, because everybody had been so down with the pandemic, and it really has been a joyous thing to meet the community in Rustavi and to sing with Turtucella. I've been to several of these workshops now, and Tamar is a really gifted teacher, and it is an absolute joy to be part of.
Yes, and I think our listeners, especially Jeff, would love if we returned with an interpreter and we could make a full podcast episode for Series 2. So, as we said, this is the end of our first series, and I'm really proud of what we've made, Susan, because since summer 2020, we've been working on this podcast non-stop. We launched it in October at the Symposium on Polyphony, which was brilliant. And since then, we've managed to create 12 episodes with 10 different guests. And our episodes have been listened to thousands of times in the UK, America, Georgia, Australia, Turkey, all around the world. And this just feels like a really good moment to just pause and think about our next steps.
Yeah, I mean, you say pause, but really we're not going to be taking a break, will we? It's just we won't be putting out new episodes. Instead, I can see we'll be spending our time speaking to potential sponsors for Series 2 and planning how to make our work sustainable.
Absolutely. And not to mention, we're doing a theatre residency next month in July. That little thing. So Yeah, last year before the pandemic, when Voices of the Ancestors was a theatre show and it wasn't yet a podcast, we applied for a residency at a theatre in Clapham in London called the Omnibus. And that's part of this scheme which helps emerging artists to develop a new piece of work. And we found out that we were successful with that at the same time as they closed their doors because of COVID. But now they're open again, and we're finally going to be developing our theatre show.
Oh, I know. We're going to be playing around in that rehearsal room and singing Georgian songs for 3 days, and then sharing whatever it is we make in a 20-minute live performance. So if you're going to be in London on the 26th of July, 2021, you can come along and be in the audience.
Yeah, we'll put out the information for that on our mailing list closer to the time. So do find the link in the show notes to join the mailing list if you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thanks to our superstar supporters on Ko-fi, your donations are more important than ever as we go through this next stage to develop the podcast. And, you know, Susan and I, we love making this podcast. It's a real joy. It allows us to follow the stories of songs and meet these incredible female singers we might not have had access to otherwise. And if you're enjoying listening to this, just please consider paying us for the work that we do. Buying us a coffee once a month is just a really simple way for you to support our work. I mean, if you met Susan and I in person, would you buy us a coffee or a mint tea? If the answer is yes, that's all we're looking for. You can go to ko-fi.com/Voices of the Ancestors. And if you can't afford that, you don't have to. You can listen to this for free. And those of you that can afford it, you're paying for the person that can't. But a really simple thing that everyone can do is just tell someone about the podcast.
Oh, yeah. Word of mouth. It's the oldest, but the best. And of course, we want to continue the podcast. Oh, we've got so many ideas for the future. In fact, we've got several recordings in the can from people we've met in Georgia. So I'm really keen to share with you some high energy singing. There was this joint concert between Sakioba and Kasla Tilla. And it just needs more time to go back and listen to them with an interpreter, just to find out how this group come to be singing these classic songs from the mountains of Svaneti when they live so far away in the desert region of Georgia. Something you'd like us to make into a podcast episode? Oh, Holly's nodding there. To wrap up series 1, it would be so great to hear from our listeners, from you. So we've created a survey so that you can tell us all about the sorts of episodes you'd like to hear in series 2.
Yeah, so to have your say, click the link in the show notes to the survey. And if you can't wait until Series 2, we'll be putting out a special one-off episode hosted by guest editor Jen Morris. And that's going to be with Bridget Boyle from Kitka. I'm so looking forward to that.
Oh, me too. I'm intrigued to hear, you know, from the perspective of people in America, how the Georgian songs have reached them. And then for Series 2, we want our podcast to be sustainable, so we're going to need to attract bigger donations or sponsorship, or possibly and sponsorship. So please fill out that survey. It's going to be open until the end of August. And if you're listening and you're thinking, do you know, I know someone who could introduce Holly and Susan to some funders, and they share the same values. Well, if you're sitting there thinking that, please let us know in the survey. Or maybe you yourself would like to commission an episode and you've got an idea. So our Ko-fi page is now open for commissions. What sort of episode would you commission us to make?
Oh, Susan, I have to say, I find all of this asking for money quite funny. It kind of reminds me of one of those begging or pleading songs that we came across in Shilda in Kakheti.
Really? You mean that Sagalobeli?
Dido Tamaro, I said, Dido Tamaro, I said, Ulamaze Sokalo Tamaro, Mihedeshens Betkulur Sakartelos, I agree.
Our king.
Yeah, so that was a woman called Niniko who we interviewed along with her granddaughter, and she was a member of a women's ensemble called Nelkarisi, and that's another golden hour of interview which is just waiting to be turned into an episode for you. I think we've got to go back and find that story, haven't we?
For sure. I mean, there are so many reasons. I mean, partly that Sagalobeli, that pleading song, they were telling us how this woman from the village had learnt it and performed it on the stage in Tbilisi and how proud they were about this. And you and I are fairly sure that person is Magda Kevlishvili, who leads Mtiebi and Ameri Meri, and who we interviewed earlier in the year. So we kind of need to follow that story and piece it together and see if make sure we're putting 2 and 2 together and making 4 and not 5. But also, do you remember we set them that challenge to learn a song for when we come back for the grape harvest? Because they wanted to be able to sing for us, and they used to when they were much younger, but they just haven't been doing it recently, and they just couldn't quite get it together.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and then also just that thing right at the end when we were chatting away and we'd got them singing just a little bit, but then we realised we'd met one of those sort of, I don't know, those traditions or norms here that we're not quite sure about, and the Niniko was just a bit concerned because she said, oh, I wonder what the neighbours will think. I'm not supposed to be singing. You know, my husband died recently, and we were mortified.
Oh my goodness, yes. I can't wait to find out more about those traditions. And just finally, I want our listeners to know about this young women's ensemble we met in Telavi called Mze Shina. And that was another interview where we set up our Tula mic and there was the usual chaos of singing and speaking and translating all at the same time. And I haven't even listened back to that recording yet, but I just know there were some really golden moments that we've got to turn into a full episode. Like when Lana from Pankisi sang a kissed song, and I'd never heard anything like it before. It's astonishing. And then they sang the traditional Kakhetian song Tsintskaro, and that really gave me goosebumps. So let's end our series listening to Tsintskaro from Mze Shina's new CD, and it's going to be Lana giving the call. So thanks everyone for listening to Voices of the Ancestors. I've been Holly Taylor-Zuntz.
And I've been Susan Thompson. And we're so looking forward to hearing from you in the survey. It'll only take 5 minutes of your time. And see you in Series 2.
شم خدا
Thank you for listening to Voices of the Ancestors with Holly Taylor-Zuntz and Susan Thompson. The music in this episode was by Ioloni Kaslatila, Mze Shina, Tamar Buadze and Niniko or Naniko Ergeshidze. And for more information about this and other episodes, you can go to voicesoftheancestors.co.uk, where you'll also find transcripts of all our episodes. And thanks to all of you for listening and supporting us through our first series. You know, we wouldn't have made all these episodes if there wasn't anyone listening. So keep in touch and see you soon. Bye for now.